my faith has to kick in. And regardless of what happens, I will be grateful, because we have to understand that we have to seek the healer and not the healing. So I'm not seeking God because of what he can do for me, but I'm seeking him because of who he is. And, you know, after this life, I just want to be able to, to rest, because it's hard. Excuse me, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, this is the video that you guys have all been waiting for, especially after posting about four or five videos of testings that I've been doing lately to try to see what my future is going to look like. The question at hand was, can we do another procedure? Am I eligible for another procedure? Is that the best option for my GERD? Maybe I do not need one, or get back on PPIs. What's going on? Because now I feel, at that point I was feeling like my issues were getting worse. But today, I finally went to talk to the doctor 2 days ago, and today I am bringing you all that information. Now, listen, guys, if you have joined my channel or are watching this video because you're either suffering from GERD or maybe have had procedures, I'm telling you, stay to listen to all the information I'm about to drop. It's so much information to the point where I had to write down a lot of the things that my doctor said and try to kind of see how I was going to explain that to you guys, because even, so much information was just a lot for me, even though I've been suffering for so long, and I'm kind of, at this point, kind of used to it, unfortunately, right? But I went outside my car as soon as I got done, and I literally wrote down, notes of what he talked about. And maybe even then I might miss a couple things, but I encourage you guys to stick around, because I'm about to give you a lot of information, especially if you haven't gone through these procedures or maybe testings. Maybe you get some good information out of this. And, this is part of the plan as to why I do these videos, so you guys can get a lot of information. And as well, if you guys, feel like you learn from my experience, even better, right? And then you can come to your own conclusion and decide what you want to do. But in my case, I'm going to give you guys an update on what's going on with my life. And here we go. Here we go. By the way, that's a Dak Prescott reference. It's fun. Football, NFL. All right. Anyways, not a Cowboys fan though, but here we go, guys. Okay, look. So I did the 3 testings, right? I did the... I had a manometry study with the 24 hours impedance test, the pH impedance test. I had an endoscopy, an EGD, where they put you to sleep, go down your throat, and they look at your stomach and your throat. And I also had a barium swallow. Those were the 3 main tests that I had. And I literally, the month of December was a month full of testings, right? Very expensive, by the way. I might add that, but at this point, it is what it is. So here are some of the results that I got. So just a quick little, if you haven't been catching up, the reasons I went to the doctor was because I was having a lot of acid issues. I feel like my issues were getting worse. I was having a lump in my throat feeling at one point over the winter break. And I was like, things are getting worse. I need to go back to my surgeon. What's going on, right? If you need to watch those videos, go back and watch those videos first and make sure that you get caught up with everything. But all right, I'm holding you guys back. Here we go. So with the EGD or the endoscopy, whatever you want to call it, the doctor said that everything looked good, that my esophagus looked good, that my esophagus looked healthy. When he went in, he saw that the esophagus looked good. The stomach looked good. Both, the organ itself, they look good. Like they look really, really good. On top of that, he looked at the links, because I do have a links implant. and he said that the links is where it should be. It's looking how it's supposed to be looking like. And everything inside, when he went inside, they kind of do like a little U-turn on the scope so they can see from your stomach and going out. And when he looked at the scope going out, he could see that there was no openings, and the links was, kind of pretty tight on the scope. It was grabbing it around pretty well. So he said that that looked like how it's supposed to. And basically from the EGD, that's all the information we got. Everything, looked like it was supposed to be. No hiatal hernia, or at least no reoccurrence of a hiatal hernia, because I already had a hiatal hernia repair. So that repair still looks good, which is great news, right? It's great news up to this point. Okay, now moving on. Let's go to the manometry study and the 24-hour impedance test. This is where things get interesting and they really get mixy, guys. They really get mixy. So bear with me, right? And this is where I need my phone. So for the 24 hours impedance test, that things measures your acid levels, right? And the amount of times you either have reflux or, but it reads the acid. But it also reads other things, other gastric juices that are not acid. So as far as the acid, and that day, if you saw the video, I try to eat everything I could so I can I could just cause as much acid in my stomach and just reflux. I ate fried food, I ate tomatoes and just things that are bad, hot sauce. And it turned out that after 24 hours, the probe only caught, I believe he said it was about 2% of acid activity. And in a normal person or normal cases, you see 4%. So 4% out of 24 hours, it's kind of normal for a person to have acid. Well, in my case, and from my test, he only caught 2%. So I'm like, well, that's interesting because, I do suffer from after reflux, but sometimes when you do these testings, unfortunately, they don't catch what they're supposed to, but it doesn't end there. So he said also, though, that, like I was mentioning earlier, the test, right, also measures other stomach content that goes up to your esophagus. So in my case, well, I'm gonna give you the average. On average, that happens around 53 episodes on a regular person, of other stomach content, just kind of just pushing or hitting that little LES area, maybe a little above. So the normal range is about 53 from what he said. But mine was over 100. I believe it was over 110, maybe close to 114. And by the way, these weren't exactly the 24 hours because, of course, when you do the test and then you go leave it in the morning, you kind of waste like 2-3 hours. But we're going to leave it for a day, over 100. So over 100 times, there was something that the probe, the impedance test, was reading that is not acid reflux. And when he said that, I smiled because I felt like I keep regurgitating something. And sometimes it doesn't come in the form of acid. And this test literally confirmed what I've been feeling. I've always called it regurgitation because it felt like it was regurgitation and, just food content. But sometimes it could be other gastric juices is what I'm thinking. But now this is the thing. What is it? What other gastric juices? Is it bile reflux? Is it something else that's causing things to, for me to kind of regurgitate and for it to come up? I don't know. So this is where my journey will take me next, right? This is where I'm going to look at next and do some research because that was a very interesting fact. Now, I'm not saying I'm ruling out just acid itself because I do suffer from acid sometimes more than others. There's a reason why it's called a disease, because it's a disease. It's weird. Sometimes you do something right and it works out, and sometimes you do something right again and it doesn't. So keep moving forward. So that's my plan, at least for the future, is I'm gonna try to see what that could be. What else is causing those juices? Is it also just maybe stomach content from the food that I ate, right? That's another possibility. So, all right. Going on to the other testing, and I might go back between all the testings, but if I remember anything else, and I'm reading my notes. So going on to the barium swallow, another interesting situation. So I mentioned in the video with my barium swallow video that when I did the barium swallow, there was a little bit of barium kind of stuck, and then sometimes it went into my stomach and went back out, which the video caught. But when I talked to the doctor, he told me that for the most part, that looked great. That looked really, really good. And I was really amazed because he was like, that looks, but what he did catch was when I do swallow, there is a little bit of something called pooling, right? So right at the base of the LES, the lower esophageal sphincter, or right above it, there is like this little pool, like where it just, the stomach, the liquid just sits. You know what I mean? Like a little puddle where it just sits. And I've experienced that, and I actually feel that. Like I can tell you when that's happening on my end, which is very, very interesting. So when he saw that, he said that, it could be some pooling. Maybe the links could be too tight, or maybe it could be too loose. That's another question that I'm going to get into real soon. But he believed that after a while of having the links device, the esophagus could create some type of kind of weaken a little bit, if that makes sense. It kind of weakens because it has to create like that extra pressure to open the links. By the way, going back to the last test, I forgot to mention that the manometry part of my esophagus. So I think this is a good segue, but my esophagus, when it comes to the swallowing, looks good. My swallowing is strong. So he doesn't believe that my esophagus has gotten weaker from the links, right? I might have felt like it has sometimes, but sometimes I feel like it doesn't. So yeah, I believe him. I believe what he's saying, that I think it's pretty healthy still. So even after having the links close to 5 years. So that came out well. And I mean, my muscles look pretty well when it comes to all that. So my manometry study came out great as well, guys. And which is really cool because I've suffered from dysphagia, especially when I get sick, when I have some type of virus or some type of infection. That does happen to me sometimes. So, all right, let's keep moving forward. So, with from what he saw from the links, he believed that from all the evidence that, because he could see the big picture now, that the links could be a little bit too tight. And, which kind of makes a little bit of sense, but at the same time, we have two different directions, because obviously if from what he saw, the links might be too tight, but he also acknowledged that if it was too tight, why is it letting other things go into my esophagus that are non-gastric juices or content, right? Which kind of, and at this point, this is where the questions he asked me are a real question. And to be honest, shout out to Dr. Daniel Smith. He is my surgeon. And the reason I'm shouting him out, and I always do on my videos, because he's very honest, right? He's very honest, and he's not the type of surgeons that have that pride. If you go back to him and you're like, look, doctor, something's off, something's wrong, from a surgery you perform, I feel like I don't have that feeling of pride that surgeons have, because, they think like, it wasn't them, it's probably your body, or just the gaslighting that happens when it comes to surgeons. Some of you guys have experienced this firsthand. And with Dr. Smith, I actually have never felt that way. He does believe he does a great job, and I do as well. I told him, last time I saw him, I said, Dr. Smith, I thank you so much because you saved my life from the Nissen fundoplication. Like when I had the Nissen fundoplication, I was dying. I legitimately was just dying. And I was like, man, this is crazy. Like the way, I couldn't sleep at all. I could sleep like 3, 4 hours. I had chest pains. I couldn't walk more than a block or two because my heart raised. I mean, it was affecting every facet of my life. So, having a good conversation with him, and him being honest was really important. And this is where he asked me an important question. He said, well, how do you feel? Right. And the question was for more, is what you're feeling now or whatever issues you're feeling now, are they tolerable to live your life? And if they're not, then we got to figure out what other surgeries we consider. Because he's like, if from what you're feeling is really extreme and is really bad, then we can consider a links of failure. But if we do, right, and this is the honesty part, which is, what do we move on to? Do we move on to the Nissen fundoplication again? Do we move on to the TIF? And he does all three of them. He's practiced all three of them, which is great because I've always encouraged you guys to find a surgeon who has a lot of experience, because at least that's something you can control, right? You can find somebody and go to somebody who has a lot of experience. He mentioned there was a new study going on overseas. I think it was like in Europe or something, the reflux stop, but obviously that hasn't been approved in America. So that's the big question. What do we do from here? And I told him, I said, considering both sides, I believe that I can try to manage my symptoms as much as I can and maybe wait for future technology, which in this case would be the reflux stop. And excuse me. And now, I told him, he told me straight up, he said, I don't believe I would, if me giving you an advice, I wouldn't recommend another surgery if you consider this tolerable. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, do you consider it tolerable? And I've seen both sides of the spectrum, right? I've seen when things are really good with the Nissen, things were really, getting so much better. And then when the Nissen almost took me out. So I've experienced worst. And I've been on that side. And at the moment, even though life is not perfect, I can deal with life, at least at the moment I have to this day. And I kind of had to make a decision. And I said, I feel like we can give it some time. Just let it be for right now. As far as the links, I asked them questions like, is there any erosion? No erosion. The links looks good even after 5 years. And he told me that, I asked him if, can the links be removed after 5 years, 6, 10 years, He was like, it can be removed anytime. So, and I've asked him that question before, by the way. So, which is kind of cool to hear because, if I give it more time, it's not like I'm, on a time frame, which is really important. And I decided that I would give it some time, that I'm going to see how it plays out, maybe wait for surgeries. Although he did tell me if you experienced anything else or you feel like you have any concerns, we can just run an endoscopy to see what's going on. And he told me that it will be okay for me to get checked every 3 to 5 years, get an endoscopy done, which I am okay with, right? Because again, one of my concerns was because of all this acid that I was feeling and, the regurgitation feeling, I just don't want my esophagus being harmed while all this is going and me kind of quote unquote wasting time. I want to make sure that at least while I'm fighting these issues or trying to manage them, that my esophagus is healthy, that my stomach is healthy, because obviously I don't want to end up with Barrett's and something lead to cancer. And even the cancer concern that I had, he didn't take any biopsies because from what he saw, there was no concern. There was no reason to take biopsies because my stomach and my esophagus look really healthy, which is really important. So, where are we at now? So another important thing that he said, considering that my links was implanted when I had the Nissen fundoplication reversed, right? Because I had that in one surgery. He said that my links looks textbook. Like the fact that it looks, the way it looks from the inside, the way it looks from all the testings where it should be, he confidently told me that my links, he would put my link surgery in any textbook. Like an actual, he was like, look at all these books right here. I will put your links and how good it looks on that textbook and how the way it's supposed to look on like a textbook. And when I mean textbooks, it's uh, um, like a educational textbook, right? Like what when you're presented with a links device and you see this quote unquote, textbook picture or image or studies of the links, what I have is what that should look like. And it's, hearing that, it's great. And of course, it's his own work, but he's been doing this for years. I mean, for a very, very long time. So that's really cool. It's pretty cool to know that it looks that good, considering that I had to get knee stem from duplication reversal. It wasn't just like my anatomy, was clean. He went in there and implanted the links. No, he had to remove the links, the mesh, and the mesh was attached to my liver, and the mesh was like still stuck to some closed blood vessels that a little bit of it he couldn't remove, or at least some of it he couldn't remove because they were so close to some blood vessels. So everything in there was already done from another surgeon. So he had to go clean all that up and eventually, implanting the link. So that's really good news to know. So that conclusion to this point, I won't be getting another surgery, which is, I didn't want to have another surgery unless there was enough evidence, like high evidence, that I would benefit from another surgery. And I think we can both agree, and maybe even you can guys agree, that there isn't enough evidence for me to get another surgery. And he also believed that. He said if it was tolerable, just handle it. And at the moment, don't get another surgery. But of course, if I were to get another surgery, what if that surgery makes me feel worse than I do now? That's also a possibility with surgeries. So do I ask myself the question and I say, hey, how have you been living the last 5 years? Has it been tolerable? Yes, it has. It's not the ideal life that I want, unfortunately. If I'm being honest with you guys, I wish that I could run. I wish that I could work out as I want to, or have less anxiety, have that less thumping feeling of my heart because of my gastro issues. I wish that a lot of things were much easier for me and I could go back to my lifestyle and that lifestyle that I used to have. But the moment you start accepting that life is gone, and for me, that life is gone, and I'm not sure if it'll ever return. I'm not sure if I'll ever have that. I don't believe so. It will take God's miracle. I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but to share some things with you guys, some sentiments. Sometimes God lets you go through things because he needs you to affect his people, to change people's lives, to affect them, and maybe be a positive light. And I really consider myself one of those people that I have gone and am going through a lot of things that, it's part of my calling, right? Just like Paul's thorn in the flesh, right? From the Bible, he had to go through a lot, and it was just part of God's plan. It's not that he doesn't want to heal me, because, by his stripes we are all healed. But maybe, that's not the plan for me. And accepting that is, I think, one of the most difficult parts in life. Because let's say I live another 30 years, right? I'm 30, turning 31 soon, by the way. My birthday is March 25th. So in a couple weeks, and I'll be 31. So let's say I do live, 30 more years. I'll have to live 30 more years like this. And that's a tough pill to swallow. No pun intended, get it? Because, dysphagia. But seriously, it's a tough pill to swallow. And if it's part of his plan and that's his will, then so be it. So be it. My faith has to kick in. And regardless of what happens, I will be grateful, because we have to understand that we have to seek the healer and not the healing. So I'm not seeking God because of what he can do for me, but I'm seeking him because of who he is. And, you know, after this life, I just want to be able to, you know, to rest because it's hard. Excuse me, guys. Because you know, physically, I don't, I don't, I don't get that a lot, and it's hard, and sorry about that, guys, but you know, we have to keep fighting a day at a time. We have to keep pushing. Um, you know, I always say, do not let your circumstances define the rest of your life. And even if this circumstances and the struggles are for the rest of your life, you can't still let those define you. You have to keep pushing. You have one life. And if this is the card we are dealt, and if this is the card that we got, we have to trust in God's plan. We have to put that to use and use that as your testimony to affect a lot of people. Leave your legacy, right? Leave your legacy behind, regardless of how shitty or how hard or how many struggles you suffer from in life. Leave your legacy behind. You only have one life, and you get to choose what to do with that. And you get to choose what you do with your situation. And I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to change people's lives, to motivate them, to bring a positive light to people with chronic health illnesses, to diseases, to things that I suffer from. And I'm going to win at life, right? Because when God is in your corner, you're not fighting for victory. You're fighting from victory because the battle is already won. And you have to believe that, right? And whatever you're going through, it's God's plan, right? And you got to fight. You got to be a warrior. Even if it's not just for yourself, fight for your family, fight for your friends, fight for the legacy that you'll leave behind to your children. Fight for something, man. So I apologize. I got emotional, but it's hard. It's really hard. We're not going to deny that. And I want you guys to see that even though I post all these videos and all this content, there is a life behind this camera. You know, a person that has a family, that has friends that suffer with me, that see me, that love me, that see my struggles every day. But I'm a human being, man. You know, it's hard. It's hard. But regardless, keep your faith up, keep your strength. And if you ever guys need anything, man, and you know, drop a comment. Don't forget to share your story. You never know what you can do to somebody in the life you could change. So that's the update that I wanted to give you guys. Thank you guys for the love. Thank you guys for the blessing. I really appreciate you guys for subscribing to my channel and just supporting me, man. I promise there's, you know, God willing, there's going to be more content coming up for you guys. And, you know, I'm even planning some big things for the future for my channel. So the only way is up. And, you know, I thank God for that. So God bless you guys. Take care. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other, your family, your friends, the people around you. It's a short life, but, you know, make a difference in it. Make a difference. So I love you guys. See you guys on the next one. Peace and love, baby.